All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore a single, really powerful question that might just change the way you look at politics. It's called the Coherence Thesis. You ever ask yourself this? I mean, it's a feeling we all know. You hear a politician make some big, bold promise, and then you see them do something that seems to completely go against it. It leaves you feeling confused, maybe a little frustrated, right?
And this is the exact problem we're talking about. There's so often this huge, jagged gap between what someone says they believe and what they actually do. It's this disconnect that makes everything feel so chaotic and makes it almost impossible to build any real trust.
So how do we find our way through all this noise? Well, the Coherence Thesis says the first step, the really big one, is to move beyond our old maps of left and right. Think about this for a second. It's a fundamental shift. Instead of immediately trying to figure out if a politician is on our team or their team, what if the very first question we asked was just, do they actually make sense? And that simple, powerful question brings us right to the heart of the matter, the Coherence Thesis. It's a whole new lens for looking at the political world. Here's what it all boils down to. Political coherence isn't about agreeing with someone's politics. Not at all. It's about whether you can draw a straight, logical line from what they say their principles are to what they actually go out and do. Is the connection there? Is it consistent? And this quote just nails it. This is what coherence looks like in the wild. It's all about transparency. A coherent politician or a coherent government basically lays its cards on the table for everyone to see. You can follow their logic, and that right there is a kind of intellectual honesty.
Now, this is where the thesis gets incredibly practical. I mean, think about it from a game theory perspective. Any kind of cooperation, any negotiation, it all depends on being able to guess, to model what the other person is going to do next. A coherent actor, even one you totally disagree with, gives you that predictability. An incoherent one? Well, they just break the game for everyone.
And this idea, it applies right across the board. The logic of a social democrat, a true blue conservative, or a libertarian, it's usually pretty clear. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even authoritarian regimes can be coherent. Their actions, which we might find awful, often follow a very consistent and openly stated logic, whether that's about keeping the regime stable or following strict religious principles. Okay, so if that's what coherence looks like, what about the opposite? Let's dissect what it means to be incoherent.
You know, at its core, incoherence is really a form of deception. The public reason they give for a policy is just a smokescreen. It's designed to hide what they're really trying to do, their actual motivation.
And this kind of deception, it tends to pop up in two main patterns. Let's break them down. So first, you have populist incoherence. A movement might say its goal is to help the working class, but then it turns around and pushes for deregulation that actually hurts those same communities. Or it might say it's all about freedom, while at the same time demanding the government get involved in people's private lives. You see, the contradictions don't matter, because the stated goals aren't the real engine. The real driving force is something else entirely: loyalty to the in-group and hostility to the out-group. The second type is institutional capture. And wow, this metaphor is just perfect. Think of a political party's public slogans, like small government, as the clean, simple user interface on an app. It looks good, it's easy to understand, but behind the screen, the actual code is running a completely different program. One that's really optimizing for the needs of big donors and special interests. Okay, so this is a really compelling idea, right? But any good framework has to be able to stand up to some pressure. So let's put it to the test and look at some of the biggest challenges it faces. And this is probably the first and most important objection that jumps to mind. What about ideologies that are perfectly logical, perfectly consistent, but also just morally awful? I mean, a truly committed white supremacist ideology, for example, can be incredibly internally coherent. And the answer makes a really crucial distinction. Coherence is a necessary condition for trust, but it is not a sufficient one. Think of it like a first filter. An idea has to pass the coherence test first. But after that, you still need your own moral compass to decide if it's actually good. Without coherence, though, you can't even start to have a conversation about trust.
And the framework has to deal with other tricky situations too. Like, what about conspiracy theories? They can have a very tight, very neat internal logic. And how do we tell the difference between someone who genuinely changes their mind over time and someone who's just cynically changing their position? Or what about huge complex groups like the European Union that are trying to balance dozens of competing values at once?
So, keeping all those complexities in mind, what's the big practical takeaway here? Well, it suggests a pretty radical new rule for how we build alliances and decide who to trust.
For decades, the standard way of doing things, especially in foreign policy, has been to build alliances based on shared values or, having a common enemy.
The coherence thesis just flips that whole idea on its head. It argues that the real foundation for any stable partnership isn't that you think alike, but that your behavior is predictable. That's the bedrock of trust.
And this comparison just makes it crystal clear. An incoherent partner, even if you call them an ally, is a massive liability. Their policies could change on a dime. But a coherent adversary, someone you might have deep fundamental disagreements with, they actually provide stability. You can build strategies around them because you can predict what they're going to do.
When you boil it all down, what this thesis is really saying is that intellectual honesty is a kind of tangible political currency. A coherent actor is showing you their work. There's someone you can potentially work with. An incoherent one? They're hiding their real motives, which makes them a potential con artist.
And all of this leaves us with one last, big, and kind of troubling question. In our world of social media, 24-hour news cycles, and algorithms that feed us what we want to hear, are we creating a system that actually rewards the very incoherence we should be trying to run away from? Is our modern attention economy making political trust impossible by its very design? It's a heavy thought to end on. Thanks for tuning in.